Choose your characters. Dweavis. Whether you like it or not, Dweavis is here to fight. Player 1 ready. Madcap.
Prepare yourself to be crushed to dust.
Player 2 ready. Match set. Fight.
I actually don't know the controls. I probably should have looked first. The game basically froze up there for a little while. I don't know what happened. Why the hell is there a swing set inside the building? Okay, alright. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that was your swing set. I didn't mean to make fun of it. I forgot to record fraps. Damn it!
Booted, loaded, and ready to play. This is
Bits.
Hello and welcome to Bits. This is the podcast for gamers by gamers. On the side of Bits, we're going over all of your game news. If you've got any, it's kind of late in the year, so there's not a whole lot going on. Any kind of new releases, which, again, we're late in the year, so there's not much of that either. And just kind of generally what we've been playing. I, as always, am my player 2, Dweavis over here, and I am Madcap, your fun-loving host here. How you doing today, Mr. Dweavis?
I am doing fantastic on this fine Saturday morning.
Yes, we're late in October here, so we got all the spooky stuff going on. I guess you got our text for our
Yes.
names all spooky.
And I got my spooky hat.
Your spooky hat.
50 years of Not Scary Farm for all you local SoCal people.
There you go, all 4 of you, hopefully. Hopefully our audience is far and wide across the world.
Yeah, right? And then people over there in Eastern Europe are like, yeah, go Scary Farm, whatever
Yeah,
that is.
whatever that is. Yeah, well, I know you've got a bunch of scary stuff going on your YouTube channel too, right?
Yeah, a lot of my my Halloween seasonal stuff is kind of getting close to wrapping up. There'll be a little bit of spillover into November, but for the most part, it's done, and I'll be talking about some of those today.
Yeah, did you want to pop one in right now while we're talking about spooky things?
Sure.
Might as well go with the theme.
Yeah, I guess so. I'll talk about one that a couple that I actually finished that I didn't talk about last time. Once again, for those of you that aren't aware about my focus for gaming, I've been mostly playing older games, and if it's not older, it's newer and usually a bit smaller scale, like indie type stuff. I like a lot of the newer, them newfangled big budget games. I don't generally
I don't
latch
get them.
onto.
They're buttons.
Yeah, them buttons and stuff, and them controllers with all those sticks.
Yeah.
No, I mean I try to play Hogwarts Legacy. It just doesn't want me to play it. So, in any case, one of my old retro games that I put up on my channel that is basically wrapping up right now. I think I played Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now you've heard me talk about that before on Flicks and whatnot, but I got into the show after the series ended and everything. But these games came out during the show's original air dates. And so I never played them because I wasn't into the show. But I actually heard that the Buffy the Vampire Slayer game for the original Xbox, which I believe is exclusive to that, it never got put on anything else. It never got ported or anything like that. I often heard it was one of the best games on that system. Which my first thought was like, it's a licensed game.
Yeah, right, for a TV series.
Yeah. Much to my surprise, it is actually really good. I mean, taking into consideration the era it was made, it didn't have a lot of the luxuries we have now, like auto saves and checkpoints.
And skins. And loot
Yeah,
boxes.
skins. Yeah. But the things that hurt me the most with it were things like that, because there were certain times I'd get like 20 to 30 minutes into a level, I'd die, start all the way at the beginning again, nothing saved.
So it's like what, chapter autosaves?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Wow.
so that was a bit rough, especially later on when the game got a bit too much for me, because it's a beat 'em up. It's a 3D beat 'em up type game. And the difficulties on it, the difficulty settings on it determine the level of how much the enemy AI blocks your attacks and counters you.
Hmm.
And so they made that part of the for the most, and I think how your health drains also is a little bit affected by it as well. But I got like halfway through that game and I actually I hit a brick wall. Like I couldn't get any further. Um, and I made a determination that I was going to go back and basically restart again on easy, because you can't do mid-game difficulty changes. Once again,
Right.
something we enjoy nowadays that didn't used to
Yeah.
exist. So if you wanted to start a different difficulty, you had to start all over again. So I did that, and I actually enjoyed the game far more after that, because while I enjoyed the gameplay, I was there mostly for the story of it, because they actually placed this game within the context of how where the show was at the time it released. So it actually,
Hmm.
I think it takes place during season 3 of the show. So like all the characters and the stories going on, it only matches with that season's, which I think is kind of interesting. I kind of like it when games try stuff like that. Um, but yeah, going back to the whole license game, is it any good or not? For a license game, I think it's really good. It was a Warner Brothers, I think, interactive title. I believe it was Warner Brothers that did it. Um, but yeah, overall, the gameplay is really solid. The fighting mechanics and everything like that. I was surprised at how well all that held up. And uh, if you are a Buffy fanatic and you've never seen or heard of this game before, like even if you just watch another video of it, like maybe my videos, uh, it's fun to watch, because they got, I think they got the majority of the actors to do the voice acting for the game for all
Oh,
the
that's always
characters.
good.
Yeah, the only one they didn't get was Sarah Michelle Gellar for Buffy, which
You know, the
which
one
is
that's important.
yeah, yeah. The good news is whoever the person they got to play the character sounds just like her. So if I didn't tell you that, you wouldn't even know it wasn't her. So they did a good job there. So that part was a lot of fun too. So there's a lot of caveats here. One, either you own an original Xbox, or you have I think I know the Xbox 360 does the emulation, which is what I used. I'm not sure about current gen Xboxes or anything like that. I have no idea. But those are the only ways you could really play this game. There's no other way to play it. And I generally I like leaning into those type of games, because the harder they are to find and the harder they are to play, um, makes them that much more enticing to me.
Right.
It's almost like you unearth like some rare artifact that almost nobody can play.
Yeah, because, if it's more mainstream, everybody's playing it or has played it or seen it.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that game's a lot of fun. I've already finished it. And like I said, it'll be fun. I think it'll be finishing on my channel here in the next week or so. Um, and then switching completely from that, I played a very kind of small scale little indie game called Let Them Come, which is kind of like, it's a 2D pixel art horde style shooter.
Huh.
Basically, you're just a character, stationary character with a gun turret, and things are coming at you from the right side of the screen, and you just
Oh,
need to shoot
okay.
them. I think it looks like it was tailor made for mobile games, but I played it on Steam. Um, it's just a bunch of waves, different waves of enemies, random enemies that you're trying to shoot down and trying to get through. And then after every like 25 waves or something like that, you have a boss you need to fight. Um, it's a pretty small game. I think it has like a total of 120 waves, and then the game's finished. It actually has a beginning and an ending.
Oh.
Um, um, but I don't really have a whole lot to say of it, other than if you like the idea of pixel art shooter, horde mode, and waves of enemies, and a bunch of different weapons to purchase to fight them with, if that sounds enticing, it's pretty good. But don't expect to get anything more out of it. But yeah.
I'm assuming it's probably pretty cheap too.
Yes, yeah, I think it was pretty cheap. But also, I noticed when I was actually, as I was recording it, that they had released a sequel to it this year. and I hadn't looked
Ah,
much into that. So apparently, it did well enough that they made a sequel to it. So,
wow. It's also worth noting that as of right now, we're in the middle of the Halloween sale, so maybe
oh
it's even cheaper on
my
Steam.
god, oh my god. Um,
Oh my god.
then a couple other games, just real quick, that I haven't finished quite yet, but I'm at the tail ends of. I'm playing Costume Quest 2.
I remember you playing that one a while ago. The
Uh,
Costume Quest 1.
yeah. That was actually one of the first games on my channel. Actually, go in the Wayback Machine will take you back to that. Um, and I always meant to get back to this franchise to finish it out because this was the last one that they made. And there's not very many games dedicated to Halloween. There's a lot of horror games you could say are Halloween because they're horror, but like this game's actually about Halloween. Um, and I think these games have been pretty well made. They're like little like RPG light, and the idea of how they integrate trick or treating into game mechanics is really interesting. Turn-based, fights, just like your traditional role-playing games. And I like how your powers are determined by which costumes you're wearing. So yeah, it's just a really fun, cute game. And anybody looking for an actual game for Halloween for their kids to play. Like even though these are older games, they still hold up really well. They're very stylized art, so it's not easy to tell how old they are. I feel like the older they get, it's going to become easier to tell because of like how mechanics change in game design over time. But
Right.
beyond that, I think they hold up really well. So I'm just about to finish that one, but I highly recommend it and the original one. And then lastly, I'm playing the remake of an original PlayStation 1 game called Medieval. The remake came out back in 2019. The best way to explain the visual style of that game, first of all, it's a 3D hack and slash platformer type of game. Is It's kind of got like a Tim Burton-esque look to it. Think like Nightmare Before Christmas. Very exaggerated character styles, character designs, and things like that. But also, this game is I feel like is also another one that's really good for Halloween because they seem to lean into a lot of the tropes that Halloween has. Like there's actually like pumpkin levels,
Right.
things of that, graveyards and eerie lakes and everything. So, but it's all very kind of like Saturday morning cartoon style. Like it's not hardcore horror or anything like that. It's very light. So I never played the original one on PlayStation, but I always wanted to. The thing I think that knocked this game down a little bit is that while they upgraded the visuals, which look fantastic, and they added some new features into the game as far as like unlockables and some additional areas to explore in the levels, they didn't update the mechanics of the game. Um, and much like I was just talking earlier, if you die in a level, you get sent all the way back. There's no auto saves or checkpoints or anything like that. And I feel like if you're upgrading a game for modern audiences, there's almost an expectation you have those crutches.
Right.
Um,
I would say so.
yeah, and is it annoying? Not really. I kind of appreciated that they kept that in there, but at the same point, there were times where I was like, God, just give me an auto save. Come on, just give me one. So
Right.
Um, but yeah, I'm enjoying that one. It's a bit rough of an experience. It can get really difficult, but sometimes I appreciate when games are difficult because so many games just try to let you walk through them nowadays, like
This is true.
literally
Yes.
walking simulators. Um, so I appreciate the difficulty level, even though I feel like some of it is just hair pulling. So it's like, yeah. But
Mm,
anyways, that's where I'm at with my games right now. I will be starting my winter slate of games here in the coming weeks, but right now I'm just wrapping up my Halloween stuff.
there you go. Doesn't sound like a bad little smorgasbord of games there.
No, I try to mix it up, all different types. You know.
Yeah, just do a bunch of random stuff. That's kind of what I
Mm-hmm.
did for the Campaign of Terror and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
What can you find? I've actually got, I think, 4 or 5 games in my Steam cart right now because of the
Uh,
Halloween sale. A lot of the
Oh,
stuff in my wish list is just horror games. So
okay. Okay.
either that or coming soon stuff. But a lot of them, it's like, well, this one's 75% off right now, or whatever. I'm like, just get it into the cart, buy it, and be done with it. They've been in there for a long time. Two of them are ones that I recommended for you as well.
Oh.
Yeah, they're the. Remember, I was telling you probably last year that they're like love letters to the original Resident Evil games, where it's that same like
Okay.
walking down corridors and stuff and puzzly
Uh-huh.
type games.
Uh-huh.
So two of those are that type of game.
Oh.
Yeah, so you should check
Okay.
those out at some point, especially if they're
Okay.
on sale.
Okay. I will
Yeah.
definitely do that.
Yes, I love me some horror games. I got so many in my wish list. It's stupid. Let's see. What have I been doing recently? I've still been in Starfield quite a bit.
Oh yeah, that was a thing.
Yeah, it's still going. It's a very big game. There's a lot to do in it.
I'm reminded of every time I go to the store and see a Doritos bag.
Oh, really? Is it with Doritos right now? Well, I mean, it is Microsoft. I guess they have the funding and PR to, hey Doritos, we got this game. Can we put it on your bag?
Yeah, but Microsoft's got. I think they got a little bit of money.
No, not that much. I mean, it's not like they'd have enough to buy Activision Blizzard or anything.
Teaser for later.
Yeah. I actually, man, I don't have a whole lot more to say on Starfield as of right now. Basically, everything I said is still the thing. It's still
I,
going, it's still loading screens, but it's still fun.
I was gonna say, have you warmed up to it any more than you were before?
I would say a little bit, yeah, but it's
Uh,
still frustrating. I mean, I did, because of a story mission, I did get in my first kind of forced ship fight,
mm,
which is where I realized that maybe copying and pasting the back end of my ship a bunch to get a whole bunch of storage space to store all the pots and forks and cups that I get, a la Skyrim. Maybe that wasn't such a good idea.
what? No way.
It was 3-on-1, and man, I'd be turning and it'd be like, my ship was large and heavy. And so
Wow.
actually, I mean, yeah, that's something new I did. I took it back, and as scary as it was, I basically just deleted my entire ship and piece by piece rebuilt it from literal scratch. Okay, here's the gravity drive, here's the cockpit, and then I would read through all of the warnings and critical errors. Like you can't have a ship without an engine. I'm like, okay, well, let me put an engine on. It's like, well, you can't have the cockpit without a docking bay, and put that in until all my errors were gone and made it as small and as good as possible. So now it actually moves and turns, and I've got like 6 missile launchers on it now because why not?
Oh my
I
god.
Yeah, it's interesting because you can build the ship from scratch. I mean, it's not the ship builder is extremely frustrating, and much like the rest of the game and its UI, GUI, interface, everything it's clunky. It's far clunkier than it should be. And then the ships are so restrictive, I feel like, that it's not as simple as take a couple boxes, put this here, put that there. Wow, that looks cool. Let's put that there, put this over here. It's like the cockpit has to be attached to this thing because you have to be able to walk between it. And then the docking port has to be the tallest thing on the ship because that's where you dock. If there's anything higher than it, it would run into something. You can't dock because of that. And oh, you got to have 2 engines because of this. And oh, it's too heavy, so now you have to have this much landing gear. And then the way they attach isn't quite fun. Like where if you
Mm,
put an engine on, now all of a sudden there's no more attach points. So you can't, that part of the ship is gone now. So it's
okay.
like you get to a point where you're trying to build the ship, like, wow, I want to add this cool fin onto it just to make it look neat. And you can't because there's no attach points because you've built engines into the ship. And you can't do it because the gravity drive's up here. And you can't have a cool tail fin because the docking port has to be higher. And, I built a ship that works. It still looks like a box. All the ships look like boxes, I feel like, or flat boxes.
That's
But
weird.
it's because of all the restrictions in the game. You have to have this, you have to have that, you can't do this because of that. And I just want to add cool fins and stuff onto it. I want pieces that make the ship look cool. And while they exist, I have so many pieces that are taken up by pieces that can't attach things to it that I can't put the fins anywhere now. So I don't know. It is what it is, but I finally did that. It cost me a lot of money. Well, I mean, not in the grand scheme of things. It was like 100,000 credits, but
Okay.
because of whatever I was doing, that's all the money I had at the time. So
As long as you feel like you got the worth out of your money.
I think so. My ship can move now.
That's a plus.
Yeah, but then it's like it's the same thing I was talking about before. I look at it and I go, "Why am I spending so much time in this? I'm not going anywhere." You jump to the planet, you load. When you're at the planet, you load to the planet. When you're at the planet, you land and your ship sits there.
You just feel good that you have a tidy little home.
I
It's
guess
just
so.
it's like a security blanket. It's like I just feel comfortable that I have this.
I felt more comfortable when I had 4,000 storage. Now I only have 1,000.
I mean, that's true. I mean, if you're gonna relate that to the real world, do you want a home or do you want a storage? It's like I could live in the storage. Sure, why not?
There you go. I want the 62 submachine guns that I picked off those dead pirates that I killed, so I can sell them later.
I mean, that totally makes sense to me.
So yeah, that's still going. It's a thing. But more recently, I picked up, I suppose, probably one of the more highly anticipated, I guess you call them cozy games, farm life type simulators. Think, like Stardew, something like that. That's probably the game most people would know as that kind of genre. But this one's called Fae Farm, and it's for the Switch. It's also on the PC, but I don't know. I just feel like those kinds of games are better on the Switch because you can actually sit down on a couch or lay down and play it. Whereas the
What is it?
PC's
Fae
Farm,
Farm?
Fae Farm. But I picked that up recently. The biggest controversy with this game is that these games aren't usually full price. This one was 60 bucks.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, the outcry from the community was pretty high. So on Steam they dropped it, I think, to 40, I believe. The Switch version they didn't, but that's, I guess, because obviously the pricing's already set, probably with Nintendo and them and some kind of contract. But they said that the Switch version would include the future DLCs and expansions, so it's like justifying the higher price, I guess, on the Switch. Whereas the PC, it's lower. But if you want like the deluxe edition with the rest of the game in it,
So they're basically saying like it's actually a $30 game, but we're tacking on the $20 or the additional $30 for the DLC that we're forcing you to buy.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all corrupt nowadays. You don't get complete games anymore. It's
Well, yeah, and it's funny that they're forcing you because I mean, even in recent history, isn't it like usually like you get that option? You either get the $30 base game or you can get the deluxe edition that comes with the season pass.
Yep.
Like they're not even giving you that option.
This was their oh crap, everybody hates us, and is like nobody's going to want to buy this for $60. So we'll switch it on Steam because that's easy. But what do we do for the Switch version? I don't know. Let's just say we'll throw in the DLC for free, and that's why it's more expensive.
Yeah, I'm looking at the site, the section they have it up for on the Nintendo, the official Nintendo page. It's just funny. One of our bigger gripes, like between digital and physical, they have both listed there side by side, and it's like they're both the same price.
It's so stupid. I mean, it's done now. This was a complaint we had 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's the most aggravating thing to see digital and physical the same price.
We're at the "I told you so" point. That's all we're doing. It's like we told you this was not going to end well.
Yep.
So.
It's so weird because, I mean, obviously digital, there's nothing there. I mean, physical, there's not a whole lot there anymore either. You don't even get manuals anymore. It's just a cartridge in a plastic case. But there's still distributing, plastic, manufacturing, etc.
Yep.
It's interesting as like a developer publisher to where I would think you would want to price digital cheaper because A, it's better for you, less overhead, and then B, more people would buy your game if it's cheaper, which is good, and then C, people like the you and the me will still pay more for the physical. So then you get the suckers like us who will give you $10, $20 more, maybe whatever,
But
for a physical copy. So you win all around.
but isn't the I guess the elephant in the room here, right, is the thing we're going to talk about here after a little bit, is like once physical goes away, there's no longer going to be that comparison for people to look at,
Yeah,
and
I guess they set the price now.
yeah, they're like, okay, we'll give it another couple years, and people won't even have this to complain about anymore because
Right.
they
Yeah.
won't have anything to compare it to.
Well,
So.
you and I will be dead in another few years. So
Oh yeah,
they
well,
will.
I think the whole world will be dead depending on how things are going.
I feel like companies like Activision and EA will be at our funerals going, "Ha ha! Yes,
Yeah,
finally, the
right.
last of the physical media people are gone."
Oh my goodness. Can I for my funeral, can I sell seats that are either digital or physical? I don't
Ooh,
know.
yes, but they're the same price though, and
They
make sure
are.
there's like a season pass to your seat.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
And in a digital art book.
And the sound. Don't forget the soundtrack.
Um, just real quick rant. Real quick rant. Is there anything more infuriating than a digital art book?
That's the stupidest thing ever.
Seriously?
It's
Seriously.
ridiculous.
Okay. That's my quick rant.
No, it's an abomination to mankind to have a digital art book. But people are suckers for it, so it must work.
I can understand digital soundtracks, sure, because
It's
you get
digital
the
anyways.
MP3, you get the MP3s and everything. But art books, really? What's your call it? Just real quick, because I feel like I sidelined you there. Fae Farm, like it looks cute. Like, is it something like aside from the pricing and all that sort of stuff? Like it seems like something you like.
Oh yeah, for
Okay.
sure. Obviously, as is common knowledge, if you're a Switch fan, just know that the Switch version is a little bit less good looking. Load times are a bit higher. Other than that, it's perfectly fine on the Switch.
Yeah, I feel like a caveat also needs to be made to the less good looking thing because we're talking like minuscule differences for the most part between platforms and stuff anymore. So,
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
Especially for a game like this, it's not like you're talking Call of Duty 900, where it's
Yeah.
like pushing the boundaries of gaming, or Starfield or whatever.
Yeah, it's like now you're talking like it's almost like different TVs at different degrees of high definition.
Right. Yeah.
It's like well, this one's like 50K resolution versus 10K resolution, and I'm like, you know what? My old eyes, I don't really notice the difference that much, so I don't really care. So
Right. Exactly. Yeah. The funny thing though is, which I've done once before, I think. I don't know if I did it on purpose though. I don't think it was on purpose. This time it was on purpose. I used Steam to my advantage this time because of the price tag of the game. We were both hesitant to buy the game, and so we're like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna buy it on Steam, play it for less than 2 hours, and if the game is good, what we'll do is we'll refund it on Steam and then buy the Switch version.
damn.
Yep.
What a racket.
I abused the system. I'm not ashamed to admit it.
Wow.
Yep. I think we got like an hour and a half in. We're like, this is really good. You want to buy it? Me too. Okay. Quit the game, refund, buy the Switch version.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm sure I'm not the only one who's done that, but
Yeah. It's like it's not cheating. They set the rules.
right.
So.
If they had charged $40 for the game, I wouldn't have been quite as. I would have just bought it, honestly.
Gotcha.
But $60, that's like AAA pricing. That's not a AAA game. It's not. It has so many weird. There's some bugs in it for sure. Definitely some weird bugs. Buttons that just don't work sometimes. It's happened very rarely in that case, but like I had one time where maybe it doesn't like coming out of sleep mode, which is all you ever do on the Switch. You pause the game, you put the Switch to sleep, and I would come back and my right Joy-Con would work everywhere else, but like when I hit A, it just wouldn't do anything in the game. So I had to restart the whole Switch, stuff like that. Just weird bugs. There's some really poor game design decisions. I don't know how they would have gotten by. Just in general, people saying, "Oh, this is a great idea." Probably the biggest one I could bring to the forefront is the horrible use of the pause menu, where it's like you pause the game, but in some areas it doesn't actually pause, and some it does. In others, it half pauses. So, for example, like everybody likes building their stuff. If you're in your house reorganizing, building, whatever you're doing, the game doesn't pause when you're doing that. For some reason, when you're in the build menus and whatnot, it's really bizarre. If you're on like the farm and you push the pause button, it pauses time, but you can still see stuff moving around behind you. Like your animals will be moving around. Other weird things like, which is a neat idea, passively your watering can fill if you're swimming or if it's raining because it's just water coming into it. That
Okay.
still happens while the game is paused somehow. I don't know. Your buffs keep decreasing even when it's paused, which is weird. The most horrendous decision I can think of is the mines. You can pause the game and time stops, but the enemies keep moving and attacking you and killing you.
Yes.
Yeah, what is... It's just...
So do they actually refer to what you're doing as a pause?
When you push the when you push the plus button, it brings up like a menu, and by the time it says paused. So technically, yes.
Oh my god!
I don't think they call it a pause menu, but it says paused by the time.
Yeah, like like they really just shot themselves in the foot by putting that word up there, because they could have been plausible deniability, been like, "Hey, we never said it was pausing anything."
Yeah,
But
it says that in the mines.
by
Yeah,
putting the word up there, it's like, what are you doing?
I don't know. Yeah, there's definitely some really weird. Just why would you do this game design choices that make no sense at all? I'm not going to get all into the nitty gritty of everything, but I think overall, I'm liking the game quite a bit. It's all you need to do is sit down and say, do I find myself wanting to sit down and play it? That's the mark of a game, despite its flaws. And yes, I'm actually, once this is over, I'm like, man, I got to go do that one thing in Fae Farm. I want to go check this out really quick. It's a new day. I want to see if my flowers have propagated into black flowers, or plant that crop, or go do that thing. Is it one of my top tiers? Probably not. I think Stardew is just an immaculately perfect, for the most part, game. That you just can't beat that. More recently, Sunhaven has been really good as well. So I don't think Fae Farm's quite up there in terms of it's super amazing and worth $60 per se. I guess you'd have to judge based on who you are, what you want.
I feel like maybe that price point, like later on, they'll be like, we're having a massive sale. Get Fae Farm for $5. And it's like, they're going to use that to justify like selling the game at its actual real price point by making it look like they have like a 95% discount on it.
Could be, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, from what I can tell, it's one of the most anticipated games in this type of genre.
Wow.
The life sim type game. So
okay, all right.
I don't know that it quite succeeded in all of that. I think one of the biggest missing things that would have helped the game is just upgrades, because you level up like every other game. You level up your farming as you farm, you're foraging, you're mining, but the upgrades that come with those they're just throwaways. And I had to look up in the almanac in the game what they even meant. It's like, your farming's leveled up, you have +1 to digging. I'm like, what does that even mean? Or your mining's leveled up, +1 to mining luck. I'm like, what is that? What does this even mean? Other games, even Stardew, which has very basic upgrades, I think it's like every 5 or 10 levels in Stardew, you would get to choose between one of two. You had to choose one. You couldn't have them both. It's like, do you want to sell your crops for +10%, or do you want, I don't know, the chance for like a 20% chance for double crops? Which one would you prefer? And that kind of thing. Sunhaven, I think, is a bit extreme. It has way too many upgrades. There's so many in there, it's stupid. But that is something that helps you become the character, the farm. It's something to look forward to. It's like, ooh, I've reached the next level or the next 5 levels. I've got that point to spend. Now my crops, there's a 10% chance to get double crops when I harvest them. Or I don't know, just different things. When you mine, you can get an extra ore, and these kind of do that in Fae Farm, but they're really obtuse and you don't get to choose. It's the most boring thing ever. +1 to mining efficiency, +1 to mining luck, +1 to mining efficiency, +1 to whatever. And I don't even look at them anymore. I just level up and go, whatever. I don't even know what that means. I'm a higher level, whoop-de-doo. Whereas in the other games, I'm like, yes, okay, we're almost there to that level. I really want that thing. That thing. I can spawn a gold pomegranate somewhere each day. And if I go find it, I can get this, more energy, more whatever. Or I can have more farm animals. There's so many in Sunhaven. It's crazy. But it gives you something to look forward to.
Okay.
But overall, I'm having fun with the game. I think it could really stand to have more time. The days go by way too fast. I think it's like a 20-minute day or so, and there's so much to do in the game that I am just burning time. I'm already in winter, and I just started this, like a month or two ago? I know Stardew had less time. I think it was like 12, 13-minute days, but for some reason, this game just, I don't know, it goes by so fast.
It's because you're probably spending a lot of time in the pause menu.
Probably. Probably, yeah.
It's like pause it and like go back 10 minutes later. What? It's already next season.
Yeah.
I was paused.
Well, for me right now, I'm trying to get a black flower for a specific item, and I've been spending all my time doing that, rearranging them, because you have to get like red and blue, and then there's a chance for those two to make a purple flower, and that kind of thing. So figuring out that whole mechanics behind that is, it's been like 5 days, and that's all I've done.
It's like farming alchemy.
Pretty much, yeah. Got to get my botany degree.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. So, I don't know. $60, make a judgment call. Maybe do the same thing I did, if you think it's worth it. I don't know. We had a real hard time justifying the $60 price tag, which is why we did the Steam thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this is actually fun. It's not horribly broken. The controls are fine. Get the basics in.
Yeah.
And just play a couple days and see if it's worth it. I guess it's worth it for $60 for me. I'm enjoying it. I just wish it had a bit more, and some of the design decisions weren't completely idiotic. But other than that, I think it's fine. I think the bigger thing to mention here, which will lead into a couple of our other stories, nice and neatly, is another one of my kind of rethinking life moments where I always buy physical media. It's just what I do. I just buy it.
Yeah.
This one, it was, I think Saturday morning, we did the Steam thing, played it, and we're like, yeah, let's buy it. Okay. Living in Southern California, there's about 632 million different stores within a 5-mile radius. I've got like 16 Targets next to me, 400 Walmarts, and like 12 or 13 Best Buys, a lonely, sad, empty Fry's building, probably about 10 GameStops. And I was like, okay, let's go buy it. Cool. Out of stock, Target 1. Huh, that's fine. I got another Target. Out of stock, Target 2. Well, that's a bit odd. That's fine. Let's check GameStop. Out of stock. Well, I guess I have a Best Buy. Out of stock. Well, there's a couple Walmarts out of stock. I'm like, what? It's like, okay, it's probably 2-3 weeks since release. It's not like it's sold out because it's day one. Could not find it anywhere. And I'm like, what is happening right now? GameStop, the place you stop for games, doesn't have it. Target, Walmart, for God's sake. Couldn't find it anywhere unless I drove 25, 30, 40 miles somewhere to the one Best Buy that has a copy.
Oh my God.
Yes. That was a moment in my life where I sat there for like half an hour to an hour going, is it worth physical media?
Oh no.
Is this actually worth it? I could have the digital copy right now, downloaded, done, don't have to drive. Because at that point I'm like, well, if we drove 30 minutes to this other city, I could get it. I'm like, I don't want to drive over there in traffic, but I kind of want the physical copy.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if let's see, I could get it on Amazon. I mean, I could probably wait 2 or 3 days, but I want to play it this weekend.
Hmm.
I don't want to wait that long.
Yep.
And I had this big dilemma of I could literally have it right now. Why am I not buying the digital copy? Why am I considering going out into traffic for 30 minutes one way to get a little teeny cartridge with no manual, no nothing, and a plastic box?
Because you're fighting for your principles.
That's true, because I
That's
like to
why.
own something.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I could not get over it. I ended up looking at it on Amazon, and I could overnight it. I'm like, okay, I can wait until Sunday and have it delivered between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m.
Hmm.
I could not get over the physical mental block. I couldn't do it. But I'm like, why am I even considering driving this far to get the game? This is stupid. And that's the first time I'm like, why am I buying physical media if this is how it's going to be?
Well, it's a I've heard this term used before. Maybe not doesn't apply directly to this. It's like a struggle session, where basically you're wrestling with like what you should do versus what they want you to do,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and and, and then you have to come to grips with surrendering what you want to do and complying with them being the
Yeah.
retailers and the game. It's like, okay, do they win?
Right.
Do they win this? And do I capitulate to them?
Yeah. Well, what would you have done? Like what? I mean, okay, we're not
I
talking your like Resident Evil
Yeah, no,
gotta have
yeah.
game,
Yeah,
but
no.
it's something you're really looking forward to.
Yeah, no, if it
Would
was something I was really looking forward to, I would go all out to make sure I got the physical copy.
okay.
Um yeah, what I would have done, and I've done this before, is like if it's a place that's really far away, you know, I would justify going there to get it by finding something else there I needed. You
Yeah,
know, like I don't
right.
think I would justify the trip just for that one thing. I don't think I
Right.
would do that. Otherwise, I would probably go the shipping route the same way you did. Um, but even then, uh, like I don't like relying on Amazon. So that's a different capitulation at that point.
Right. Yeah.
It's like it's a surrender, but it's not as big of a surrender. Um,
Right.
and I'm getting what I want out of it. So I'm like, okay, it's a minor surrender, but at least I'm getting what I want.
I feel like this happened with me and Fries. No, I don't feel like it did. Sorry, it did happen with me and Fries as well. And I don't know what to do. I try not that I'm like some hippie crusader tying myself to trees, but
Hmm.
I try so hard to support brick and mortar stores.
Hmm.
I even considered going to a GameStop for God's sake, and I hate GameStop.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you want from me, stores? I tried everything I could to buy a 2 or 3 week old game from you in your store, and you didn't have it. Yet here we are. Amazon can get it to me overnight. Obviously, they have copies. Why
Yeah.
don't you?
Yeah.
I,
I mean, yeah, I feel, yeah, because your Targets and your Walmarts, like, and
it's
maybe
yeah,
even your Best Buys, I give them less leeway here. They can make the argument for shelf space. You know,
right.
it's
Yeah,
not their primary thing that they sell, right? But GameStop has no excuses. No
right.
excuses. But we already know. We already know why they don't have it there. It's because for years now, GameStop has focused on used sales. So, um, and their new copies of things are usually only provided to them based on how many orders,
Yeah, the
pre
pre-orders classic.
pre-orders.
Yep.
Yeah, they don't carry overstock on new items like that, especially things that you would say is unproven, right? It's not a big franchise, it's something like that. They can't guarantee by based on metrics how many copies they're going to sell. So they're when they go to their distributors or whatever, whoever they buy the stuff from, they're not going to roll the dice on that, like because they're like, we have no guarantee that people are going to buy these. Plus, we prefer people buy used copies. So if people do get physical copies, they'll bring them to us when they're done with them, and then we'll sell those, and those are our physical copies.
Right. Yeah.
So
Which has tie-ins to two stories, one shorter that we have to talk about. I did, because I was on vacation recently in a different state. We were just wandering around, and there was a GameStop. I'm like, well, I'm standing in front of it. Let's just go in and see what it's like. I haven't been in one for 10, 15 years now. And man, it was barren and sad. It
yeah.
was a lot of Funkos,
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of just stuff, and then some games on the shelves. Like you said, there was some used stuff. I'm like, well, that's kind of interesting. There's some new stuff, but like for a store that calls itself GameStop, I was like, this is it. This is all we got. Just some Switch titles, and then it just there wasn't any life to it. When I first came down to this horrendous state and found GameStop for the first time ever, I'm like, this is like the holy lord of everything. Because I came from a place that didn't have that stuff.
Yeah.
There was no GameStop. I didn't even know what a GameStop was.
Wow.
And I wandered in, I'm like, this, are you kidding me? There's video games everywhere. What do I do?
Yeah.
There were bins. You could rifle through bins. I'm like, I found my first true love Ion MMO. I found that at a GameStop. It was a tin in a bin for like $10. I'm like, wow, this looks kind of neat. And I bought it, and that was my MMO. I went into this GameStop, there was nothing. There were no bins, there was nothing fun. It was just, here's some used games. There's like maybe 20, 30 used Switch games, and then some barren copies on the shelf of coming soon, Mario, and here's a couple new games.
Mhm.
And a bunch of Funkos and other things. And I was like, this is this is sad.
Well, I mean, it's a mixture, right, of what we just got done explaining about how they operate, but also like the video game companies, the distributors, the publishers, and all that. They're just not making a whole lot of physical copies anymore. So,
Which is good. They're winning. Because remember a long time ago, that's what they wanted? They said that they
well,
didn't like GameStop selling used games because they didn't get a cut of the profit.
yeah, exactly,
And they don't like that. So they hate
exactly.
GameStops.
I feel like yes, they are getting what they want out of this, and I think it's going to be a slow revelation for a lot of people. Like we've already experienced it. You and I can spell out pretty and articulate pretty well our issues with digital only stuff, right? There's a lot of things that we've covered in the past. But for the current generations and younger generations, they're entering a world where their digital is the primary focus. So um, like you're gonna have a few out there that have nostalgia of like, oh wow, that must have been really cool to have physical copies of games. That's why you have your limited run companies
Right.
and stuff like that to cater to that audience. Um, but ultimately, what I think is going to happen is these younger generations are going to start to recognize the same issues we have, where these games that they've purchased digitally or something like that, um, they're not going to have a way to transfer it from one thing to another.
Yep.
And now the game companies, to their credit, are trying to combat that with their live services, right? Like Game Pass and all that sort of stuff. They're like, this will exist across consoles. You'll never have to worry about that. So if you buy it digitally, you'll play it no matter where you go. Um, and I think that's fine, but also it goes back. I mean, we haven't talked about this a long time because it hasn't been an issue a long time. This goes back to the original issues we've had with like DRMs,
Right.
where even though the game exists and you maybe purchased it, like it can be taken away from you at any point if they want to. It can be altered at any
Yep.
point. Hello, Plants vs Zombies, Michael Jackson
That's the
zombie.
classic example.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, more recently, are people just okay that all of a sudden Blizzard comes out and says, "Sorry, Overwatch 2 doesn't exist anymore," or I mean, Overwatch 1, you don't get to play that anymore.
Yeah.
We don't want you to play. Here's Overwatch 2.
hmm
Are people just fine with that now? I
I
don't.
feel like people are being groomed into that
Yeah.
expectation that
Right.
games are no longer finite, right? Like when you buy a game, it chances are it's going to change over time,
Yeah.
and
I guess
people
not even a chance. It's just it does now.
yeah, and people are being groomed to have that expectation. Now it really comes down to whether or not there'll be any sort of awakening to that, because I'm a strong believer in this based on like what I see on YouTube and other places, that retro gaming is on the rise. Like it is a thing that is starting to become more relevant, and that's because playing older games is becoming easier to do.
Right.
Like it's easier to play some, like you got you got the emulators, and you got specific consoles that are focused on that as well. um and I feel like the more people play those older games, the more they're going to realize that, like, hey, wow, this is really crazy. Like this game, like, it has a beginning and an end, and it didn't change halfway through it, or like it
Right.
didn't it there's like there was no major update that fixed this issue, or put this new thing in there, or changed this character. And they're going to look at how modern games are, and they're going to see a stark contrast. And I think that's where people, like, they're going to see like better value in how games used to be made and sold to us, versus now, where the the Fortnites and the Call of Duties and the Maddens and things like that, and how it's more of a,
Games as a service,
yeah, it's a
a living
service.
game.
Yeah, which I still feel like there's a place for that, but
Sure. Yeah.
we
MMOs.
never were asking for that to become the norm, right? Like that's
Right.
where all games headed. It's like, I think the industry overcompensated.
I would say so. I mean, there's something to be said for playing a game and remembering it. Like I could go, ooh, I pull out my Super Nintendo and I remember that game I played a long time ago. Put it in and play it,
Hmm.
and it's not like, oh, let me go play Plants vs Zombies and wait, what happened to the Michael Jackson character, or what, or
Yeah,
start up Borderlands. I'm like, boy, Borderlands was great, and you pop it up, I'm like, Borderlands 3, get your shift codes and your gear and your keys. I'm like, what?
yeah,
Why? When did they change this? Like,
yeah,
what? I don't know.
yeah. And it's going to come down to how new audiences react to this stuff. Are they going to embrace it, or are
Oh,
they
I
going
think
to
people are,
they
yeah.
are they going to yearn for the ways of yesteryear? Like,
No, I think people are too blinded.
I
I think
I
it's the whole move from one game to the next culture. You don't really care about what you're playing. You're just doing it because it's the thing.
Yeah, I'm oftentimes also a pretty pessimistic person, but I do see some glimmer of hope, though. Like I said, there is a large contingent of people out there, especially a younger generation, that likes playing older games. I can't guarantee if that's going to change their perspective on current games and how they're being presented, but there's at least an education that's happening, like that isn't being lost, basically.
Right.
So I feel like there might be something there, but what we'll only ever know it the day, like, where we hear Call of Duty is being canceled because people aren't playing it anymore. Like, until that day comes, nothing's going to change.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, that ties into our other story, like the final tie-in, I think, of all this. Is that basically Best Buy has confirmed, at least in an announcement, that they're ending sales of DVDs and Blu-rays in early 2024. So that's officially going away. It doesn't affect games yet, but it's just one of those things to put out here because of everything we're talking about.
Hmm.
So they're not going to be selling into that. I'm sure those shelves will be used for pop figures because that's what everybody sells
Oh,
nowadays.
my local Best Buy, they have an entire Lego section.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
they
weird.
they have
Yeah,
like a whole display, and I'm like, is this turning into a friggin' toy store?
it's bizarre. It's the same thing like a Barnes and Noble. They have like half,
Oh yeah,
well, probably like 25% of the store is games, pops,
yeah.
board games, stuff like that. So I don't know. Yeah, but I mean, along with that is something you had discovered actually, and as far as I know, this is not confirmed, but it's at least a tie into this. That sounds like possibly Walmart starting in 2024 won't even be selling physical Xbox games anymore.
Yep.
Uh, I don't know if that's true,
I, I'm gonna
but
I'm gonna say it probably is.
probably, yeah. More shelf space for pops. I mean, that's what you got to do nowadays, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
I'm so
can
sick
we
of seeing those.
can we take a second to reflect on cause and effect? So they're pulling these things from the shelves and clearing them for your pop figures because they're just not moving like they used to, right?
Right.
Well, why are these physical copies not selling the way they used to? Well, the cause here, is that they're just like we were just talking about with GameStop. There's just not that many games being made in physical form anymore. And if you have you have a much smaller selection, there's a high likelihood that those are not going to be purchased as often. Like
Yeah.
it's like they have forced this upon themselves of like it's like if they're making it seem like they as in like the industry, I guess maybe, the game industry, they are not to blame for the sudden lack in physical copies anymore. It's like, no, like you're directly blamed for it because you stopped making them that way. You started making your consoles more about digital purchases. Like literally they have digital only versions, right? For the
Right.
consoles now.
Yep.
And it's like you're helping steer people in that direction. It's not necessarily where people were going. Like certainly there's a segment of the population that loves digital. They love the convenience of it, which is fine, but I don't think it was a super majority. I think there's a lot of people out there that probably still would more likely buy something in physical copy because what do we always complain about when it comes to like movies and TV shows and streaming services, right? We
You
don't
don't
know
know
they
where to
even
get it.
exist.
Yeah.
Um, if a physical copy of a game exists and it's on a store shelves, and let's face it, people go shop at stores.
I
It
always go to the game section when I'm at
yeah,
Target getting other things.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's where you get the majority awareness of your title by seeing it there in front of you.
Right. Yeah.
So it's I don't know where this is going for the game industry, but it's it's not somewhere good for the smaller indie things. I feel like this is being pushed by the bigger studios because they have the advertising muscle to get the word out about their titles.
Right.
And they don't need those store shelves to sell their product because they're a household name basically.
I guess the
Uh,
new store shelf is all these YouTube channels that are like, here's the top 10 RPGs of the month to buy. I
yeah,
guess that's the new store
it,
shelf.
that and advertising in your own games, right? Like there's
Right.
certain games I play where like if I'm connected to the internet, like one of the games I played during the summertime, the Assassin's Creed game I play, like the main menu has advertisements for all the upcoming Assassin's Creed's game.
Yep.
It's like oh okay, like that's how you're telling me about your new games coming out. Like yeah, but um I I don't know. It's a bit it of course it's sad that this is happening and I wish that like the population would realize that this is not the route you want to go. Um, but I feel like it just needs time to sink in because I think the reality is a digital only media. It's not going to end well unless people are accepting of the fact that they don't care anymore, that they don't own anything outright.
Yeah, I mean, you see it all the time on Steam. It's like, oh, EA's pulled all their games off the store. If you already own it, you can keep downloading it and playing it. But it's like, well,
Mhm.
where did that go? Where'd this?
Yep.
I had a game like, ooh, I should get that so we can play it. I'm like, why isn't it on Steam anymore? Where did it go?
Yep.
I can download it and own it, but I guess you can't buy it anymore.
Yeah, I think we talked about it a long time ago. There was a game I was trying to find on Xbox 360. It was a digital only game, right? They never made a physical copy of it. It was one of their arcade games, and they pulled it off the store, and that's because they lost the licensing rights to some of the
Uh,
music in the game.
yeah,
And it's like they need to, because like if you make a game and it gets released in physical form, if the licensing rights go away, they don't just pull those games off the shelves.
right.
so they could still sell those games.
You can still find GoldenEye, even though all the debacles with the licensing. You can
Yeah.
still go buy that 64 cartridge.
Yeah, they don't go
Yeah.
find them and destroy them and throw them in a ET pit somewhere.
Right.
Or
Or go in and change the music because
Yeah.
they lost the license.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
we've seen hints of that, and we've seen the examples of it that we just got done talking about, but I don't think that that's happened at a mass scale yet. And I feel like eventually it probably will.
I think this is the catalyst, the Best Buy event.
Yeah.
Because then, Walmart's going to go, well, yeah, maybe we should do that too. But, I mean, I've already lived through this. So this is nothing new to me.
Oh, because of the PC
yeah.
stuff. Yep.
There used to be boxes of PC games on the
Yeah.
shelves at Walmart, and then they
Giant
dwindled.
boxes.
Yes, yeah. With a T-shirt in it. Then that dwindled, and then they were pretty much gone. You could find like jewel cases, like the really cheap jewel cases. Then those were gone. I think the only legitimate boxed PC games you can find anymore is The Sims 4 and World of Warcraft.
So weird.
Yeah, I've already been through this. Physical media just stopped existing for the PC market. There is no physical media for the PC anymore. It's not even an option.
Yep.
So yeah, that if you think it can't happen, then just look to the PC market. And the consoles we've discussed before, consoles are PCs now. What happens when you buy the disc and you put in Call of Duty? Gotta download 400 gigabytes to play it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not even physical anymore, really.
Yep. Consoles basically taken on the role of the PC of the old unlock codes.
Yeah, I think I bought Grand Theft Auto 5, put in the disc. I'm like, all right, let's play this. We see that your storage isn't big enough. Do you have an external storage to download the game? I'm like, but it's on the disc. It's right here. I have it in my hand. Oh, sorry, you can't even play this. I'm like, so I'm scrambling to find like a flash drive or something.
Yeah, exactly. Talking real quick about the limited run games people, like some of the features that they advertise for their titles that they sell on their site is that the game is on the disc. That's an actual advertisement.
So sad.
They're like, there's no downloads. The whole game is on the disc, and that's a feature now.
Woo! Yeah. I don't know. It's horrendous. I don't know. But it's the way it's going to go. So
I mean, but also once again talking about my optimism about people maybe realizing or waking up at some point about the downfalls of digital a bit more. The thing that often gets lost, and it was quite the PR failure for Sony, or no, I think it was Microsoft. It was either Microsoft, Sony, I forget. It's when PlayStation 4 and the Xbox whatever during that generation was coming out, where they had announced that they were going all digital. I think it was Xbox did that, and then Sony came out and said like, "Hey, we're not going all digital. We have physical copies," and that's how they won that war. Well, one of the things that was argued at that time against digital was the fact that you can't lend your game to somebody, right? It's like there's no way to share a digital product with somebody else. There's just
which
no
again
way
is
of
what
doing
companies
it.
want. They don't want you sharing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So and also this is also a way for a big boon for the game industry on their end, not for the consumer, is that they eradicate the used market because they make no money off the used sales.
Yep. Which if you circle back around to 2K and their idiotic claims, digital should have been cheaper, first of all, obviously, and the companies are now raking in more profit than ever because they're their own distributors. Yep. Sure, they pay 10 whatever % to Steam, maybe, but the fact that they're saying we need more money for games when there's no physical, there's no real anything you have to do with that anymore. There's no trucks to deliver. I'm sure they had to pay Target, Walmart, GameStop, all these places, something.
Yep.
But they're like, we need more money now. More. Give us. And we're at $70 per game.
Yep.
When games should have been like 50 or 60 right now because it's digital.
Yep.
It's crazy. It's all the game industry is profiting, winning. They eradicate used. I had that discussion with somebody about books. I'm like,
Mm.
I don't understand the Kindle. I don't read more than one book at once. Why do I need 10 million books on my device? And it's like, I told somebody about a book. I'm like, here, you can borrow it. Here you go.
What?
It's,
What is this? No, what?
yeah, I'm like, you can loan people things to play
It's like I
or
have to
to do
touch it?
whatever. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. But it's going to happen. There's no stopping it. So
Yeah,
digital is the way
exactly.
of the future.
Yeah,
And
like
it's not to say there's not pluses for it. For games, that is a plus. You can play more than one game at once. I'm
I
often playing 4 or 5 games at once,
yeah.
but I don't
It,
know who would carry 4 or 5 books around. Those are
it,
huge, and
in all digital future, a funny anecdote for you, or maybe not an anecdote, but like an example of like a change in perspective for me. I remember as a kid watching something like Star Trek Next Generation, and seeing the world that they had as like really cool. It's like, oh my God, look at all these, like they have every these things at a touch of a finger, they can they could just generate food,
right.
but like my older, more cynical self now looking at that almost sees the Star Trek world as a friggin' nightmare. Because it's a world where they own nothing. Like they have no possessions, really.
Right.
It's all manufactured off of replicator, clothes, food, and like Picard, even when he's reading his books, it's just on his tablet.
We're there.
Like everything is just manufactured out of thin air, and you have nothing as a possession.
I guess as long as corporations don't exist in Star Trek, like your Activisions and your EA, that could be a
Hmm.
great future. But as long as you have this whole fighting and scrapping amongst, oh, it's only going to be here or not here or there, or we're
I
going to
just
take it away because of this.
I just can't imagine a world I would want to live in where I don't have possessions. And this all digital thing we're working towards is that, where you just a term that I've heard in the past few years that has rung true more and more with each passing moment is you'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
Yeah.
It's like this idea of like you don't need possessions or stuff like that. It's like, no, I kind of like my possessions. Like looking around my room right now, like I have this stuff, it's the tactile nature of stuff. That's what I've always
It's,
argued for.
well, it's because when you spend money, you expect a product out of it.
Yeah.
When you don't have anything tangible to
Yeah.
have, it just feels, I think it's a mental thing where it feels wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's like if you
That's
pay for Spotify or something, what are you paying for?
mhm.
Just, I guess, to have the most recent music all the time. You never own the song. You can't go back and go, man, I remember when I went out and bought the Metallica Master of Puppets record in 1980, and like, I still have it to this day. Here it's like, here's the new song. A month later, you don't listen to it anymore because the new one's out, and it's just, continuous wave of things.
Well, I give a quick example of that. I purchased a lot of digital music. Everybody has.
Right.
I found a site that sold it that I was like, okay, this site's pretty good. They got a lot of good they got a good library. And I bought the stuff, and thankfully I downloaded all of it because they gave you the option. But there were certain ones that I had saved to go back and purchase later, and I went back and they weren't there anymore. And I reached out to the customer service like, "Hey, what happened to this?" And they said like, "Oh, we only license things for a short period of time." And then
Uh,
I looked at their print and the fine print of them. If you were to purchase something off there and just stream it off of there, there's no guarantee that it will stay there.
oh, that's
And and
awful.
and the music industry does not recognize your purchase. So you
Great.
cannot pull that from like Amazon or something like that. And it's
Right.
like, what? So like to put this in context, this is the equivalent of going to a store, purchasing something physical, bringing it home, and it getting lost, right? The store is not going to just replace that for you. They're like,
Right.
"We you sold this, it's yours now. You do what you want with it." This is the digital equivalent of that. They've sold it to you, it's yours. It's up to you to manage it correctly.
Right.
So,
That happened to me a long time ago with a Walmart MP3 that I bought, I think. I tried to play it like 10 years later, and it's like, oh, can't connect to the DRM servers. I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
It's just lost. Which that's like a halfway thing I do. I'll still buy, wherever possible, physical CDs, but then I immediately rip it to MP3 because
Yep.
that's where everything goes. So
Yeah.
I'm like a half and half on that.
Yeah.
To where I've got the physical disc over there. If I lose the MP3s, I can take it,
Yeah.
re-rip it.
Good luck finding that now. Like CDs even are hard to find. But the funny thing is, like the thing that's making a big comeback is vinyl.
That's true, yeah.
But you can't rip vinyl.
You can actually.
Oh, you can?
I think
Oh,
you can hook up record players to like USB and
oh my
record it
God.
over USB.
That's crazy.
So there are ways to do that, yes.
I like that we've turned into the music podcast.
Bits,
Suddenly.
flicks, and tunes.
Yeah, but clearly, if you haven't been able to tell, we could spend hours on this topic.
Yeah,
we
I guess
should
we should
probably move on
move
to, I think, what is our final story here?
Yes, I just have one other thing to talk about very
Okay.
briefly. It's super
Okay.
quick. But yes, I think it's been about 2 years now, almost 2 years roughly, and super heavy scrutiny and so much confusion that I didn't understand what was going on. But Microsoft has finally announced that they have completed the acquisition of Activision Blizzard and King, but nobody cares. Candy Crush and that garbage. But
Makes money.
they have completed that. It's finally done. It's been done and not done, and then done and not done for a long time now. I feel like I kept seeing, oh, it looks like this is going through. Oh, the UK has put a moratorium on it. Okay, what does that mean? But yes, that's done. Microsoft owns them. They own Bethesda. They've got a lot of stuff now. And PlayStation is still crying, complaining, and whining. We want our Call of Duty. You can't take that from us. You're horrible. And Microsoft's like, okay, we'll give it to you, baby. Along with that, though, another more interesting thing that comes out of that, I guess, is that 2024, well, I guess 2023 will be the last year of the old Bobby Kotick. He will be resigning as the Activision Blizzard CEO. I guess
a lot of people are applauding that.
Probably. I'm not saying he's a great guy. It's just he's a guy that's been there for a while. I guess Phil Spencer asked him to stay on, and he's like, okay, well, I'll help you through the transition through the end of the year. But he's like, I'm done. I'm gone.
Yeah, he has no reason. The guy's like a multi-millionaire. So
yeah, I'm not sitting here saying, oh God, why? But it's just a figurehead of note that is departing the industry. So, good or bad? Who knows? I don't know. But yep, that deal's done. I don't care.
There was a lot of things that they had to manipulate to be able to get this to go through. Because like you said, like the UK and some other places were trying to stop it because they saw this as too big of a monopoly.
Right.
Like some of the stuff they did here, they said to get the acquisition through, Microsoft had to promise to not lock down Activision Blizzard games to only Xbox consoles. So they had to give that assurance that they weren't going to do that.
I think them giving Call of Duty out of the goodness of their will was a play to say, hey, look, we're being benevolent with these. Because that's stupid. You buy the company so that you can have the games. I hold no fault to Microsoft if they said, nope, Call of Duty's ours. It's only on Xbox and PC. They own it. It's their property.
Yeah, but they made a guarantee to Sony that it was still going to be on PlayStation for the next 10 years.
Yeah, I think that was part of their play to show the courts, like, no, we're going to help. We're going to do that.
Yeah, but they also made a cloud gaming deal with Ubisoft for Activision
I think I saw that.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they did that also. They had to make all these little side deals to grease the wheels to get this deal done.
Right.
Yeah, they had to make sure, like, hey, yeah, we own half the world, okay? We'll let the world do some things with them for the next 10 years. But like if you notice, like 10, 15 years is the benchmark. There's nothing saying that after that time's up that they can't just wrangle all this stuff in and be greedy.
Right. Well, what I would assume they're going to start charging Sony for Call of Duty now, saying, hey, it's our property. If you want it, pay us 15% of the profits.
Yep.
Or something. I mean, that I don't know. It's the way it is. If Sony had bought Bethesda, would I have been disappointed? Probably, but I'm like, well, it's their property. If I want to play Skyrim 2, then I'm gonna have to buy a PlayStation
I
because they own
feel
it.
I feel like Game Pass is suddenly going to become extremely competitive now with Epic Game Store and Steam. And
Right.
I think they're going to start to become even more prevalent the further we go, because as we said, like a lot of these deals, as they start to expire, Microsoft's going to hoard that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Well, I saw a story. This was just randomly foodling about the internet, so take it for nothing at all. But I had seen some statement. I think it was a quote from Phil Spencer. I don't remember what it said, but something along the lines of, "If the Game Pass doesn't succeed, we're just going to stop making games." Like they're basically saying kind of what you're saying. Game Pass is the thing for Microsoft, Xbox, the gaming division of Microsoft.
yep,
And if
yep.
that doesn't work, we're just going to fold our cards and bow out.
Yeah, I mean, we made the prediction early on in this current console generation. I think I spearheaded this prediction, but I think you joined on with me. That this is the last real console generation, like excluding Nintendo. Nintendo's going to do Nintendo,
Right.
but for these other studios, the Sony and the Microsoft, specifically Microsoft, in this news that they're taking physical games out of the stores,
Right.
like what you may see is just continued upgrades to the current console, right? Like they're not going to have a big reveal of a brand new console going forward.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the same thing. Like I think the console era is we're watching it basically go away before our eyes.
Well, I mean, kind of proof to that point. I still don't believe Sony's going to go away, but that's just me.
I don't think so. I think they're
They're
more likely to stick around, but I think
yeah.
Microsoft is out.
Yes, I would say so. But the
Yeah.
big thing with this, if you aren't kind of starting to believe that, is the Chromebook, super low powered device, built for schools, built for I can browse the internet. It doesn't do anything. They're really underpowered.
Mm.
They have ads now that are promoting it as a gaming device. And you know why? It's because those games are streamed.
Yep.
So yes, the Xbox Game Pass, if they start moving all into that, all into
But
this, they just need a teeny little box. And you say, here you go. You can stream all your games
but
now for $50 a month.
cloud gaming,
Yes.
which
Digital/cloud is going to be the way they're moving.
but once again, reality is going to have a really big thing to say about that, because as we talked about on Flicks, the reason why Warner Brothers doesn't have every single movie in their catalog available on the streaming service is because of server space. So
Yeah, there's got to be a lot of bandwidth and stuff for this to work.
so like if and I see it on my PlayStation, the PlayStation Pass I have, right? For their stream, download, cloud games. They don't have a consistent list on there. When they add things, they take things off. And you're going to see this become even more of a thing the more these companies move to streaming cloud services. It's like, yeah, they're going to have a lot of the big games when they come out, right? A lot of the eye-catching things. But anybody interested in playing a game that they maybe missed like a couple years back or something like that, good luck finding that on these services, especially if it's a lesser known game, because
Yeah.
like they're gonna be basing what's available off of what's popular, not what you want.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect model, unfortunately, for today's world because people just don't. They either play the same thing 24 hours a day, like Fortnite, so
Hmm.
that's going to be on there forever on that service, or people have the attention span of nothing now.
Yep.
If the video's not 10 or 15 seconds, they're moving on to the next one. And I think that's the same thing with games. Like, oh,
But
cool, yeah, great. Oh, wow, this is even better. Cool, yeah, great. And it just keeps rotating. They forget about that game that disappeared off the service.
so I want to say, like, the movie industry right now is a canary in a coal mine for the gaming industry, because what we're seeing in the movie industry right now is they're having to refigure out what they're doing, because streaming services are failing left and right. The movie industry, like in theaters and whatnot, is failing still. It's not doing great. So they need to refigure out their model, basically. Now, the video game industry is just now starting to get themselves to that point.
Right.
And I foresee a very similar future where everybody's happy with things are they are right now, and that's because you can still, in some way or another, most of the time, you can kind of get physical media if you want it. There's it hasn't fully shifted over like we've seen with the movie industry, uh, and I feel like what Microsoft is trying to do here, especially by you know picking up all these franchises and games with the Activision Blizzard, I feel like the more they grow their library and the more they try to stuff into their service, the more people are going to realize like how inefficient it actually really is. Like if you're like a gamer like you and me, and I'm going to say that there's a lot of people out there like you and me, like as far as our tastes in video games and how we like to consume them, um, you're going to feel kind of thwarted by this effort and kind of just remove yourself from that ecosystem and find other avenues to get what you're going to get. Like I think for you and me, I think I'm perfectly happy just focusing my gaming on Steam,
Pretty much,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, that's going to be my platform of choice if I have to choose between all these other digital things, right?
You just don't
Um,
play EA games, basically. Stuff like that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to have to be forced to make a choice, which is exactly what's happening with the movie streaming things right now. It's like you have to make a choice. Like there's all these different little things that sure you'll like this, you'll like that. You're going to gravitate to the platform that has the most of everything you want and
Yeah, a la
focus on
Netflix
that.
back in the day. It's
Yep.
like, oh, you can watch anything on Netflix. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll buy that. I'll subscribe to it.
Yeah. So I foresee the same thing happening with the game industry. The more we start seeing all these different companies with their streaming services and them competing with each other for video games and locking down content strictly to them and then seeing them take content away and add content and make it really difficult to know where to find what anymore. Um, it's going to become just a mess, just like the movie industry.
Yeah, I mean, you already get that partially with digital stuff where EA has come back to Steam groveling, but I still don't buy it because guess what? You still need an Origin account.
Yeah.
I think, I don't quote me on this, but I think you still have to do the Origin launcher in some way,
Oh
unless they've
boy.
changed that. I don't know. I was like, oh, cool, maybe I'll buy that Origin account required. I'm like, oh, never mind. Why not? Why don't you just use Steam? It's the same thing with MMOs. It's stupid to buy an MMO on Steam because as soon as you buy it and download it, all it's downloading is the client. And when you open the client, it just connects like you would if you had bought the game any other place and
How,
downloads from their servers.
yeah.
It doesn't
How
make any
how
sense.
How long do you think until we see major studios like Microsoft and whatnot start dipping their toes into things like early access?
I'm assuming Microsoft already has,
Like, I mean, I'm saying like for a Call of Duty, right? Like,
right?
are they going to start just like are they going to lean into what we've already seen with
Probably.
the because like if they start going digital only, they have no reason not to do that.
Yeah, because people are stupid. I mean, they'll buy games that aren't finished,
It's like,
and
yeah, especially if they've been trained to expect a new Call of Duty every November, right? If they're
right,
told like, hey, you can get it now in August.
yeah,
It's not finished, but you can get it now.
and that's
And
the kind of game where people are like, "Bro, I've already got it, man. Yo,
yeah,
dog, I'm already playing it."
yeah. And people that stream them, right? Stream them
Mm-hmm.
on YouTube, Twitch, which we said maybe may or may not be a thing anymore. That anybody cares about. But yeah, like if you're a streamer and you're trying to get clicks and people to watch your stuff, you're gonna want the stuff that's brand new.
Right, pre-brand
So
new.
So then the video game companies are going to prey on people that need that content earlier to make them keep themselves relevant.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, primarily my Steam wish list, where I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is on sale. Oh, early access." And like, some of these games are early access for like 5 or 6 years.
Oh yeah,
This is absurd.
it almost seems like a tax write-off scheme.
Yeah,
It's like if it's like kind of like how the movie industry works. Like what happened with Batgirl last year or this year, where they made the movie, but since it never actually got released, they could write it off as a tax thing.
Huh.
Like it never got put out there and never made any money on it, so they could write it off as a tax write-off. And that's the reason why they shelved it, because they would have lost money if they would have released it that way. I foresee, like, I feel like the early access has some sort of benefit, financial benefit for them to not actually have it declared released.
Could be. Yeah. I mean, if people are dumb enough to pay you to play a game that's not finished for 5 years,
Hmm.
you never have to finish it.
Yeah,
Because by the time it releases, the people are going to be tired of the game and moved on to something else.
and there's a psychological component to it where by releasing updates to it, right? It's like, hey, we added this whole new character,
yep.
this new thing.
Mhm.
People feel like that there's progression
Yes.
happening, where in fact it's actually just a normal game model.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Early
Like,
access is such a scam.
yeah, because
How can you have sales on a game that's not released? I keep seeing that where it's like the game's $20 and then, ooh, the Steam Summer Sale. Hey, it's half off. I'm like, the game's not even out yet.
I mean, the game industry still has zero regulation, right? Like, there's
Right.
no regulation for any of this stuff. I feel like if the world was right and they were trying to protect the consumer, if you had an early access game and somebody paid for it, there needs to be an opt out. Like, it's like, okay, after a year, right? This game has not actually released. You have the ability to get your money back.
Yes. Yeah, there should be early access, something like that should only be allowed in the final year. And if you don't deliver a released game,
Hmm.
then there should be some kind of penalty.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's because the developers themselves will get bored. It's like,
Oh,
oh, it's
yeah.
been 5 years. We're still trying to get this game going. Let's just
Uh-huh.
call it 1.0 so we can move on with our lives.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's like when the game does officially, if it does officially release, it's not like some grand, like, oh my God, this game's super polished now. It's
No,
usually just
yeah.
a flick of a button, like, okay, we're released now.
Yeah, we called it 1.0.
Yep.
Because we want it to be done, so we can say, okay, we're washing our hands of this. We're moving on.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that happened to me once. I did early access once for a game I really wanted, and I'm like, wow, cool. And I played it for like 90 hours, got bored of it, and the game launched, and I'm like, oh, it's out. I'm already bored of it. I guess I'm not going to play it. So
Yeah.
and now I've steered away from early access ever since. I
And,
refuse to buy it.
and let's face facts here. Like, a lot of games, even if they aren't labeled early access, are early access. We've made
That's
that
the even
argument.
bigger scam.
Yeah, we've made that argument before. Like, going back to the Overwatch 2 thing, right? Like, that game is still having things added to it. Like, they're still adding things to it as if it one, it never had an actual release, and then it was considered released, but we still have more features coming down the road. It's like, that's early access without being early access.
I think early access just evolves into games as a service.
Yeah.
So early access just rides, you call it 1.0, but it just rides as a new name called games as a service now.
Oh yeah, yeah. And just tying this back to what we were talking about with Microsoft and this rise of game streaming services, like, you're gonna see a bigger push for that, because if they're like, no more physical copies for Call of Duty, well, we can release this whenever we want to and just post updates whenever we want to. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah, there's
And
no Game Gone Gold
yeah,
shipping thing.
yeah, yeah. They don't have to worry about certifications or anything like that, because they're all releasing mostly exclusively on their own platforms. And yeah, they have no reason. Once again, they have no reason not to do that. And that's how far the gaming industry decides to push the boundaries on that will ultimately determine the success or failure of this endeavor.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes over the next few years.
Telling you, man, retro gaming is the way to go, because and by retro gaming, I'm meaning, like, not even going back 20 years. Like, he could go back 5 years. I consider that retro gaming at this point.
I
Like,
think like
anything,
the Wii U.
yeah, anything where there's majority physical copies is retro gaming at this point.
Yeah, you should see my shelf of Wii games. Holy crap.
Yeah.
It's like,
I surprisingly have a gigantic gigantic collection of physical copy PlayStation 4 games. And a lot of that is because I purchase a lot of stuff off a limited run. So
Right.
I endeavor to get the physical copies when I can. So yeah, I don't know. It's a changing industry. It really comes down to your perspective. If you're okay with the way it's going, if you have concerns about it, but ultimately the real decision's in the hand of the video game companies.
Yeah,
And
ultimately, you don't have a choice. Why do you
yeah,
think I'm
and
playing games digitally on Steam now?
the only choice you have is not to play.
Which
That
will never
that
happen. People
it
always
can
say vote
it
with
no,
your
but see,
wallet, but
that's what I'm
nobody
saying.
ever does.
And I do vote with my wallet, and I haven't bought any of the new consoles. This is the first time a new console generation's come around where I just did not participate. I did not participate. Like that for me is speaking with my wallet. I have decided to shift my focus to older games. Like
Right.
and just my current crop of games. I still have games on my Xbox 360 I never played. You know,
Yeah,
it's
right.
like it's like I the more I think about it, the less incentive I have to jump into this new generation. I just don't have it.
Yeah, it's a very bizarre generation, especially with no launch titles from either company, and it's just a mess.
Yeah, I looked at a list of the upcoming games to see if there's anything to talk about today. There's nothing worth talking about. I mean,
No.
there's the Nintendo stuff we talked about, and that's all good and fine, but most of it is just like I just shook my head. Like they actually are listing like DLC in there as like actual game releases now because there's so few games coming out.
Yep.
I see DLC listed in there as an actual legit game release. I'm like, oh my god.
Yes, season passes are games.
Unbelievable.
All right, well, this has gone a bit long, so I think I'll save a couple of the other stories that are super unimportant for next time, and kind of wrap it up here. I don't think, unless you have one last thing to mention or
No,
anything.
no.
Okay. Well, cool. I guess that will do it for this Bits episode. A lot to talk about, kind of dissecting all this stuff that's happening, especially with the confirmed announcement from Best Buy that they're not even going to do physical DVDs or Blu-rays anymore. So it all ties in. It all slowly is coming together to be the same thing. So
Hmm.
it takes a lot of talking about and dissecting. So hopefully, anybody who listened to this, it's kind of put some thoughts in your head. There's nothing wrong with liking all digital. I'm not saying there is, but just, look at the pros and cons to everything and just
Hmm.
see where things are going. If you're fine with that, then that's cool. I mean, it happened with me on the PC. I have no choice. So I'm an all digital PC person now because of no choice.
Yeah,
So it seems to be where we're headed with everything now.
that's true. Yep.
So hopefully you enjoyed this. Where can we find some of your YouTube stuff you were talking about earlier?
Gaming with Dweavis. You should be able to find links and everything in the stream if you're watching on the stream. If you're listening to the audio version of this, just go on YouTube and type in Gaming with Dweavis. You should find my stuff.
Perfect. Same thing with the podcast as a whole. Bits and Flicks will get you there on YouTube, so you can find these if you'd like to watch it or whatever you'd like to do.
Yep.
So I guess until the next episode of Bits, keep holding on to those physical copies and don't let anybody take them from you. So,
Exactly.
lock them in a trunk.
Hmm.
All right, we will see you all next time. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.